And welcome everyone. We should be live now. We are live from London. It is nearly 10:30 p.m. UK time. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. If anyone has just clicked on this video or on this live and you don't know what you've clicked on, this is a live stream from the streets of London. We'll go for a little walk in Soho. Although we are not in Soho quite yet. We are in Fitzrovia. Something great. Perfect. Thank you, Tish. Right. Hold on, my microphone is... Most of you know the drill already. I'm going to have to test the microphone. I'm just going to tap it 3 times. Let me know if you hear it. You should have heard a triple tap. It's quite important today because it's a bit windy today, so we want to make sure the microphone doesn't get disconnected. Let me know in the chat that you've heard that. And welcome Sandrine, welcome everyone that just joined. We've got about 10 minutes before we start. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. You've heard it, perfect. Thank you, Linda. So if anyone was completely new to me, if you don't know what you've clicked on, this is going to be a live walk. We've got about 10 minutes before to go. We're waiting for everyone to connect. And Mike is here. Welcome, Mike. You've heard it. Perfect. Thank you, guys. And welcome everyone that I did not greet in the chat. We are live from the streets of Fitzrovia. Oops. Sorry, I've just moved the cable. I've got my new old gimbal. I had to go and swap the one I had the other day because it wasn't good enough. Because they had sent me the wrong model. I had ordered one from a second-hand shop. They sent me the wrong one. And I had to pay extra to get the one I ordered, which is ridiculous, but hey-ho. Anyway, let me flip this camera around to show you a bit of the view. It's been raining. Well, it's still raining right now, but hopefully it might, well, I kind of hope it might stop, but I doubt it. Ooh, let me clear the lens a little bit. Bear with me. I'm just gonna put you down and clear the lens on the other side. When you see those little strings of light, it's because the lens is a bit dirty. I'm just gonna clean it this way. It's usually finger fat. You know, when you, if you touch the lens, if there's a bit of finger fat on the lens, then in the evening when you have those, the light, if you see strings of lights like this, it's finger fat on the screen. Let me see, it should be better now. Yes, better. Well, kind of. Welcome everyone that just joined. We are live. Oh no, I still see some strings of light. Bear with me. Oh, thanks so much, Natasha. Bear with me. I'm just gonna clean the lens a little bit again. You like the phrase finger fat? Well, it's grease, really. I should say more than fat, but finger fat sounds better to me. Right, let's see what time it is. We've got 7 minutes to go. 7 minutes before it's officially time to start. Welcome, Yoda. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning from. It's always great to see where people are from. Eileen, nice to see you here. And the rain is getting worse. Oh well. I hope it's not going to be too windy, because when you have the rain and the wind in the same time, it's annoying. Hi, Cindy. Oh, thank you, Janie. That's very much appreciated. So it's quite cold tonight, but not as cold as it's been a few days ago. It's I'm a bit cold because I'm wet. I got a bit soaked on the bicycle, but it's a little bit warmer than it was than it's been last week, for example. New Year's Eve was freezing. That's probably when I got the frostbite. Well, I think it was the night before, really, but yeah, because I was on a we had the great idea to go on a rooftop. The suicide, oh, I shouldn't say that. One of the rooftops that a lot of the, the finance people in the city, some of them used the rooftop to take their own life in around 2008, so there's one particular rooftop that has a bad reputation in the city, where quite a few people have sadly taken their own lives. And that's the one we chose to go on for New Year's Eve. And it was freezing. I didn't even make it to midnight. We left at 10:30. I just couldn't warm up. So that's probably what didn't help with my frostbites. Hi Mitzi. Hi Herbie, and welcome everyone that just joined. We still have a few minutes before to go. We're waiting for everyone to connect. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes, I think. Let me get the umbrella out because we are definitely going to need it. So I'll get that open before we start. Oops, hold on, bear with me. I was hoping it might get a bit better, but no, it's definitely gonna be an umbrella weather. And it's a bit windy, but hopefully not too bad, because otherwise it's a bit tricky to be holding the umbrella and keeping the gear dry when it's too windy, but hopefully it won't be too bad. So we're not quite yet in Soho. We are in Fitzrovia for now. We'll be walking down to Soho. You wonder if fat fingers have more finger fat. They probably do. It has to get out. And welcome Roberta, and welcome everyone else. If anyone was completely new to me, let us know in the chat. It's always great to see some new names. Ashas. And welcome Marilyn. So we've got about 2 minutes to go, I think. For anyone that just joined, we're gonna go for a little walk, a live walk in Soho. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. Let me see how long we've got. 3 minutes. 3 minutes before we officially start. I'm here by a pub. It's closed now, but I want to show you the pub sign because it's interesting. It is the Duke of York. Hi Sarah, I've not seen Sarah, but you must be there if people say hello. And welcome everyone else, anyone that I've missed or anyone that I did not greet. Nice to see you here anyway. Oh no, it's gonna be windy. Well, it's already broken, Chas, the umbrella. Ooh. Ah. Oh no. I do have another one that's very strong. That's a double tier umbrella, but I didn't think it'll be too bad tonight. Oh, Natasha, did you ask about your tech issue? I didn't see that message. I don't know how it's possible. And it's only you. If anyone have no idea what we're talking about, for some reason Natasha is not able to speak. Well, you see her messages, I don't. Unless she tips. So she's got to give me $2 every time she wants to say something. It's not fair. But I don't know, because I've definitely not done anything on my side. It must be a bug somewhere, but I don't know how it's possible. Oh, thanks, Nikki. It's I'm letting it grow white or grey. I don't know what it's going to look like. So that's why I had to cut it, because I'm going to let it grow white. It might look disgusting. I might change my mind very quickly, but let's see. Some people say I'm way too young to do that, but we'll see what it looks like. 1 minute to go. 1 minute before it's officially time to start. And welcome, Samantha. And let's see. Oops. So I didn't see the time at the end. Yes, it is officially time to start. So welcome everyone. Without further ado, let me flip this camera around to show you the view. So we are in Fitzrovia. We're gonna head towards Soho, but I wanted to start here to show you this little pub because I think it's funny. This pub around here, it is called the Duke of York. I think we have 52 pubs called the Duke of York in England, but this one is particularly funny because some of you might know the Duke of York until 2 months ago was Prince Andrew. I shouldn't call him Prince, he's no longer a prince. He's called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor today, that's it. He's no longer a duke, no longer a prince, since the Epstein scandal and the emails that were linked a couple of months ago. The funny thing here is that the pub, this Duke of York, since 2014, they had they were not rebranded, but they had rebranded their logo with the little pub sign with the image of the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew. Let me show you a picture to show you that I shit you not. Until a couple of months ago, it was Andrew on the little sign. Before you ask, no, they did not serve any underage girls, but I think it's quite funny. They had to change the logo now. So I think the one you see now on the little plaque, it's the Grand Old Duke of York, you know, the one that was an army commander and that wasn't really good at his job. He was the son of George III. Let me remove the photo. By the way, our present / former Duke of York, Andrew, I think it was quite funny to start here because, well, he's not the first prince that got involved with a sex trafficker abusing children. We'll talk about another one in a moment. Yes, Kurt, exactly. There's a little plaque about that right here. So that inspired the poem as well as the show. This is not really my generation, but if you know the TV show The Strike, apparently the pub was featured in the show. Anyway, now they've changed the sign. Now I'm pretty sure it's the Grand Old Duke of York on the little illustration. So the Grand Old Duke of York, that's the one you might know from the little nursery rhyme. You know, the Grand Old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. He marched them down to the top of the hill and marched them down again. When they were up, they were up. When they were down, they were down. When they were only halfway up, they were neither up nor down. Anyway, up there you might see a bit of the BT Tower. The BT Tower, when they first built it, would you believe, it was meant to be a secret. It was meant to be a secret for communication with, you know, through the Cold War and stuff. But it's quite difficult to keep it a secret. It's such an obvious secret. But it wasn't on the maps and stuff at first. Now, let me cross here. Now, do you guys know why I'm here? We're going into Cleveland Street. Do you know what happened on Cleveland Street? Let me know in the chat if you know why I came here tonight. Hi Pauline, and welcome everyone else. So you might see the sign here, Cleveland Street. You might have seen the sign Cleveland Street at the beginning of a movie. If you've seen the movie From Hell with Johnny Depp, the Jack the Ripper movie, at the very beginning, I think the first scene actually, it starts on Cleveland Street. The building in question, it was actually on the other side. It's a new build today. It's an office block. It was number 19 that has an interesting history. But it would have looked a bit more like the one on the other side over here, those Georgian terraces. That would have looked a bit more like the one back in Victorian times. So do you not know why Cleveland Street is infamous? Well, I'll tell you as we walk, because we've got quite a long walk. It is because of the Cleveland Street scandal. So sorry, my umbrella is annoying, sorry. 1889 in July, what happened is there was a little thief or someone that stole from at the telegram office. You know, at the time you had those telegram boys everywhere bringing those telegrams. Oh, you sang it at the library, Natasha. Yeah. Here, all the kids at school, they'll know the little rhyme. Yeah, so back in the 19th century, actually Britain was one of the most dangerous countries to be a gay man at the time. You know, it's hard to imagine today, because today London is such a LGBTQA plus friendly city. You know, we even have LGBT nursing home and stuff like that. But back in Victorian times, it wasn't easy. You could be hanged, actually. At the beginning of the 19th century, you could be hanged for sodomy. There was a case in 1835 of two gay guys that had been hanged, Pratt and Smith. And actually in 1810, I'm going to go to the other side because I think there's work on this side. In 1810 there was a brothel, the gay brothels, they were known as molly houses. There was one that was caught in Covent Garden, and 18 men were arrested, 2 were hanged, and some were pilloried. So you know, it was dangerous to be at least a practicing gay man at the time. And anyway, to get back to Cleveland Street, 1889, there's a robbery, or someone complained of a theft in the telegraph office. So the police was involved, and they started to search some of the little telegraph boys. You know, you had those little boys at the time delivering the messages for the telegrams. And there was a boy, Charles, 15 years old, that was searched. Those boys at the time, they were not allowed to carry their own money because it could get mixed with customers' money. And they found 14 shillings in his pocket. Well, depending on the sources, some say 14, some say 18 shillings. And that's a lot of money. We're talking for a telegram boy at the time, we're talking about maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks wages. And the boy was interrogated by the police, and he said, no, I committed no theft, sir. No, it's my own money. And they were like, okay, how did you get that amount of money then? And eventually the boy confessed that he had been selling his body. He had been prostituting himself in a gay brothel at number 19 Cleveland Street. Now, that was, of course, a big scandal. He told the police that he was working for a guy called Hammond, and the police decided to raid the place. Unfortunately, someone had tipped off Hammond. When the police got there, the brothel was empty. Hammond had already he escaped to France, I think. Now, the police actually put a surveillance on the building, and they waited for people to turn up. A few aristocrats turned up, would you believe? And some were also accused by the boys, because the little Charles, he actually gave the name of other boys working for the telegraphs as well as the brothel. He had been recruited by a guy called Henry Newlove. That was actually his name, Newlove. That was recruiting boys at the telegrams office to work in the brothel, and the boys. The justice system has been fairly nice with the boys. At the time, so in the 1880s, you wouldn't go down for sodomy anymore, because that's quite difficult to prove. They changed it to gross indecency. I think it's in 1861. So that's much easier for them to find people guilty, because you don't have to prove that there's been sodomy. It's just gross indecency. The boys were only given a few months of hard labor. Well, only. It's still a lot for innocent boys that have been trafficked to an extent. But yeah, that's what Oscar Wilde had to do. The hard labor. Anyway. Those people turning up at the brothel that was closed or empty, some of them were aristocrats. Some of the boys had involved and described Lord Arthur Somerset, an aristocrat. He had visited the brothel. There was another guy that turned up, Fitzroy, another aristocrat, Lord Euston or something his name was. And he, when he was asked by the police, he was like, "Oh no, I believed I was coming to see a Pose Plastic." A Pose Plastic was a show with naked ladies, but not dancing. They were not moving. And Fitzroy was like, "Oh, I was horrified when I got in and discovered what happened in this place." Then he escaped to Peru, and then he claimed he'd never been to Peru anyway. But when Somerset was involved, he got his solicitor, a guy called Newton. I think that's the same solicitor that Oscar Wilde took later on. Oops. Sorry, it's very windy here. We are now on Oxford Street. Oxford Street, that's the street that used to be called Tyburn Road, because that was the road people would take down to the Tyburn, the execution spot at the corner of Hyde Park. It's an old Roman road. At the time, it would go all the way up to St. Albans and stuff. And today, it's of course a big shopping street. A very dangerous place to come and hold your phone like I do. 18 telephones a day are being snapped out of people's hand on Oxford Street. Oh, and my new gimbal is all soaked already. Hopefully it will survive. And, sorry, I'm just gonna try to get the umbrella to comply. Voilà. Right, so, you know what, before to get back to Cleveland Street, here on Berwick Street, there was another brothel in the 18th century, this one, that was managed by a lady called Mrs. Goodby. She was known as the abbess. The place was known as the nunnery, would you believe? And Mrs. Goodby, she was known to have a huge supply of virgins. They were not really virgins. I mean, she would sell them as virgins as much as she could, but they used to put some blood, and sometimes even animal blood, in their private parts to pretend to be virgins. I mean, it was very dangerous as well, because blood can be, especially animal blood, can have some nasty bacteria. Even just with a tampon and stuff, you can catch some toxic shock. Imagine those poor girls pretending to be virgins. But anyway, so that was on this street over here, the nunnery. Now, let's get back to the Cleveland Street scandal. I'm sorry, I do apologize if the umbrella comes in the frame, but I do have to try to keep the material dry. So yeah, Lord Arthur Somerset, when he was involved, eventually he tried to shush down the inquiry. It is said that even the Prime Minister got involved, and he said, you better drop the case. Well, Newton, the lawyer, said, you better drop the case because some people are involved, and he said, P-A-V. That's all he said. He never named anyone, but he said P-A-V. We believe that stands for Prince Albert Victor, aka Prince Eddie. He was second in line to the throne. He was the first son of Edward VII. So you had Queen Victoria, then you had Edward VII, and then did I pronounce it wrong? Kurt, Mrs. Goodbye. Now, let me cross over. You know what, I'm just gonna, there's a bit of a shelter here. Bear with me one sec, I'm just gonna try to dry my gimbal a little bit because I'm worried I might break it already. Bear with me, I'll just get some tissues. Right, so. Because if it goes into the little bits of the gimbal, there we go. So, so they're telling the authorities PAV might be involved. PAV, Prince Victor Albert. That's the one that is, of course, you might have heard of him in the Jack the Ripper story. The prince was an interesting character. It would be interesting to know what is true and what is not about the prince. He was, hi Jamo, and welcome everyone that just joined. He was described by Queen Victoria herself, his grandmother, as having an empty brain. And his tutor actually said he was lazy, and so he was definitely described as not much of an intellectual. Well, he did have a small, maybe, I'm not sure that's true, but even if he had a small brain, he had a big equipment, if you know what I mean. It is said that his equipment was so big that when he was playing polo, that would be very inconvenient. I think that's massively exaggerated, but you know the Prince Albert, the piercing? Some say that it's named after Prince Albert, Victoria's husband. It's not. It's after Prince Albert Victor, Prince Eddie. Some say, I'm not sure I believe that at all, but some say that he even had his penis pursed to be able to attach his private parts to his leg when he was playing polo. I mean, that doesn't sound right to me, but that's what people say. So anyway, he was apparently gifted in down there, but maybe not up there. And personally, I'm not actually convinced he was gay. He potentially was bisexual. He did go to Cambridge, and he was the first one actually to go and get properly educated there. And he was in the Navy as well, so he would have had many opportunities to have a relationship with boys. But we definitely know that he had crushes on ladies. He was trying to marry his German cousin, but she rejected him, and then he had a crush on a French lady, the heir of the Duke of Orleans, which was not a good idea because, of course, after the French Revolution, because the Duke of Orleans, he would have been a contendant for the crown of France. Diplomatically, it would not have been a smart move. Anyway, quick stop here because this pub here, you might be able to read, it's called the Blue Post. We have 4 pubs in Soho called the Blue Post. One is just Blue Post and one is the Blue Post. But we've got 4 because Soho used to be a hunting ground. Soho was actually a hunting cry. You know, you'd catch a hare and you'd go, Soho! And you had 4 Blue Posts marking the delimitations of the hunting ground. And we still have those 4 pubs today. Now let me go down this way. So to get back to Prince Eddie, his name is Victor Albert. Victor after his grandmother, Victoria, and Albert after his grandfather. But he was known as Prince Eddie because they choose their names. He never became king. He died at the age of 28 of an influenza epidemic. Whether he was really involved with the gay brothel, or did Somerset drop that name just to shush down the inquiries, we don't know. Or maybe was he taken down to the brothel just to, a bit like Prince Andrew and Epstein. You know, when Epstein took Andrew to Central Park, I mean, they didn't go for a walk, did they? Epstein wanted those photos to be taken, didn't he? So did Somerset take the prince down to Cleveland Street just to get him involved? We'll never know. But whether he was involved or not, it does look like the government was. They probably did believe he was, because there was a bit of a cover-up. That's almost undeniable. The news didn't reach the press until the winter, but the international press, I think the first one that mentioned it was in New Zealand, actually, the one that named the prince. So that's why it's been such a huge scandal. It's because it was kind of shushed down for many months. Anyway, some of you might recognize exactly where we are. This is the Jon Snow pub. So that's the one that. Let me see what Kurt says. Hold on. Oh, it's Kurt is saying the Blue Post might have been to wait for the sedan chairs. We'll talk about the sedan chairs in a moment. Actually, once we get down to, well, if I don't forget, we'll talk about that in a moment. Anyway, so the Jon Snow, that's the one that was involved in the cholera epidemics of the 19th century. There was a huge epidemic in Soho, and this very little pump was blamed. At the time, cholera was, they believed you could breathe in the smells, you could breathe in the epidemics, so cholera was blamed by the smells, and Jon Snow was the first one to prove that cholera was actually waterborne. But you already know this story, so let's get back to Prince Eddie. Oh, you know what? Oh, no, I was going to take the umbrella away, but it's still raining. So Prince Eddie, whether he was involved in the Cleveland Street scandal or not, it does look like the government probably believed he was, and they tried to shush it down. Actually, he went to India. What a coincidence. Suddenly he's being sent to India just to avoid the scandal. It's a shame, because whether he was involved or not, whether he was even bisexual or not, I'm not sure. The reality is that his brother became king, George V, the Queen grandmother. George V is the founder of the House of Windsor. He's the one that changed the name of the royal family to Windsor. And it's sorry, I'm just struggling with the umbrella. It's just a bit easy. Oh, sorry. It's just a little bit easier to kind of let the image of Eddie being tarnished. So we're so lucky to have had King George V instead of the bad king. We could have had the scandalous one, the gay one. When the reality is Eddie might not have been that stupid. Actually, Eddie was suggested as they wanted to give him the job of the Viceroy of Ireland, and the situation with Ireland was a bit complicated at the time. Would they consider this position if he was that dumb? I doubt it. So he might have actually really not have been as bad as some people say. Anyway, this is a mural over here, the Spirit of Soho. We're not going to stay down here too long because you've seen it before. We've been down here before in my Plague and Cholera tour. But just to show you, because we'll go in a moment, sorry, the camera is not... I wanted to show you some characters, but they've just gone black with the light. There we go. So yeah, the guy in the yellow, it's Mozart, and behind him you see Karl Marx. They lived in Soho. The one in the red, let me touch the screen so you might hear. The one in the red, this is Casanova. And next to him there was Teresa, one of his many mistresses. Teresa, she also had some kind of a brothel over here, I think, or some kind of a party place, but she ended up in debt. She ended up dying in a debtor's prison. You know, at the time you could be jailed for not paying your baker or your whatever it might be. She was jailed in a debtor's prison. All right, bear with me. I'm just going to deal with the umbrella again. There we go. So you might recognize this. We are now on Carnaby Street. That's where we often come to see the Christmas lights or any other decorations. We're gonna go down that way just to show you the big Soho sign. There's a neon. There we go. Now, time to tell you about another interesting character that lived around here. It is Chevalier d'Éon. Chevalier d'Éon is known today as one of the first transgenders or transsexual, or at least definitely a cross-dressing character. He was originally from France. He lived around here. I'll show you where in a moment. He's known as Chevalier, or he became a Chevalier. His full name was Charles Geneviève Louis Auguste André Timothée d'Éon de Beaumont. Try to remember that. He was, well, it's fair to say that he was a spy. He was a small aristocrat in France, but he managed to meet the Prince de Conti. Better to say it in French, because in English that'll be the Prince of Conti. It sounds a bit dirty. Usually the Prince of Conti was often the cousin of the king. So he met the prince, and he was invited at the court of Louis XV in a masquerade. You know, those big parties. Little pause in the story. You might recognize this. This is a former plague pit, but we've been here before. So victims of the plagues have been buried here, and now it's a lovely little square, golden square, where you can come and have a picnic or whatever it might be. Anyway, so D'Éon is invited to this party at the court of Louis XV. At the time, you know, men did not dress that manly for us today. You know, they had those little tights and those big wigs and those little boots with heels as well, actually. They actually often had this type of parties where people would cross-dress. And it is said, we don't know whether it really happened, D'Éon probably spiced up his biography a little bit. He's got his memoirs, I think they are at... in Leeds or somewhere. He might have spiced it up a bit, but officially he went to the party and he met the king, Louis XV. And he was dressed as a lady, D'Éon was. And the king was confused. He believed it was a very pretty girl. He tried to kiss her. And then D'Éon was like, "Ooh, you're mistaken. I'm not who I think. I'm not who you think I am." And that's how the king was impressed by D'Éon's ability to dress up and pass as somebody else. And the king hired him in what they called the king's secret. That was basically the secret services, spies. And even his own ministers and stuff were not aware of the king's secret. And he was sent to Russia under... I think the Russian leader at the time was Elizabeth I, I think, the Russian Tsaress. Anyway, he was sent at the court of Elizabeth in in Russia. And his job was to manage to get her to sign a treaty of, kind of an alliance if there was a war, and he eventually did. He did manage. It is said that in Russia he also dressed up as a lady. Actually, in his own memoirs, I think he says he dressed up as a lady full time. We know that's not true. We know he was as a man in Russia, but some say that he actually passed as himself and as his sister in the same time, and that the Empress of Russia didn't notice that it was the same guy. In terms of pronouns, I'm going to stick to he, because nowadays it's all about pronouns, but the truth is I don't know whether he would have wanted to be called a he, a they, or a she, so I'm going to stick to he. And so he eventually lived here on Brewer Street. That's why I'm telling you about Deon down here. So when he came back from Russia, being very successful in his spying enterprise, he was involved as an army a military guy through the 7 Years' War. When France lost, then his job was to come down here in London as some kind of a French ambassador, but he was a spy at the same time. You'd think it's the most obvious job. You wouldn't trust the ambassador not to be spying, but he was. So although he was, as an ambassador, he was at court and stuff, his job was also to go down the south coast and check the spots where France could have invaded and stuff. So that's very risky work, because if he was caught, that could have been an excuse for war. And it is thanks to Deon that France actually kept the sugar colonies. Martinique, Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. France lost a lot, Louisiana and Canada and stuff, but they kept their sugar colonies because he managed to sneak into the paperwork where it had been recorded what Britain was ready to lose, basically, in the peace treaty with France. And when he lived here on Brewer Street, he had a big library. He was throwing some lavish parties. And that's when he started to dress up as a lady, and the gossip is probably the one that started the gossips himself. But it started to be a gossip that Deon was a lady all along. And people, in the 18th century, we had a bit of a betting craze. People would bet on anything at the pub, and people started to bet on Deon's gender or whatever he was assigned with at birth. And the King of France started to be annoyed with Deon because he was spending a lot of money on stuff. And eventually the King of France was like, that's it, you're coming back now. And Deon was like, no, I'm not. And the king was like, are you serious? And Deon actually blackmailed the King of France. He said, you know what, I've got all the proof that you got me to spy and check the point on the south coast. I've got enough to start a war, so you let me be here. And that worked. He actually published a little book saying, "Oh, there's more coming in the next one," and that worked. He kept putting pressure on the king, eventually, though, the King of France changed. So from Louis XV, it went to Louis XVI, his grandson, I think, and at that point, actually, France decided they have to put a stop to it, because Deon claimed that he was born a lady, but that his dad wanted him to be a man, to have an heir, so that when he would have cross-dressed as a man and he went to war, and he was actually very successful at war. He was very good at fencing, and so he claimed that he was born female and that he had lived this part of his life as a man, and that now he was a female again. And the King of France had enough. He sent a guy called Drouet to investigate. Drouet came here to Soho. He met with Deon, and apparently Deon let him touch his private parts. Probably not undressed, there's a way to bring your stuff between your leg and hide it. We don't really know what happened, but Drouet was probably so uncomfortable, he probably didn't touch it for very long. And Drouet comes back to France, and he's like, yeah, it's a lady, definitely a lady. And then eventually the King of France, he told Deon, okay, you can come back to France now, but you have to dress as a lady. Now, bearing in mind, in the 18th century, it was very annoying to dress as a lady every day. You had those, those corsets and those dresses that make a big bum, with the crinolines and all that. And Deon was annoyed because there was a few military stuff he wanted to go, and he wasn't allowed to dress up in his military uniform dragon. They were called the dragon, the regiment. So he lived in France for a few years, and then eventually his landlady over here, she was like, "Hey, you're not paying. I'm gonna have to sell your library." And he loved his books very, very much. So he came back. Well, by that point anyway, France was going to have a revolution, and he was going to lose his pension, because he still had, despite the fact that he had been blackmailing the king and stuff, he still had a big pension from the French government. Well, the French king, would you believe? But obviously with the revolution, he lost that anyway. So he lived another 30 years of his life here as a lady in Soho. And he made himself a bit of a show, really. He would do some fencing competition, and he would come fencing dressed as a lady. But that was probably his only way to make money at the time. And by the time when he died at, I think, 82 years of age. That's a very expensive car park down there. When he died, he was living in London with a lady called Mrs. Cole, like a flat share with another. I don't know whether Mrs. Cole was a widow or maybe a spinster, but another single lady. And Mrs. Cole was definitely, most people at that point were convinced Deon was a lady. All the people that would have been betting at the pub, if they said otherwise, they would have lost their money. And when Deon died, Mrs. Cole went to do the mortuary toilet, and she had a bit of a surprise. Apparently, that was a fully fledged penis. Sadly, they didn't give him any privacy in his death either. They had some scientists coming to do a little sketch. Deja, do you mean, am I in France right now, or which city am I from in France? Originally, my family is from Brittany, but we are in Soho right now. We are in London. Anyway, so yeah, they did a sketch of his private parts, and you can find it online. It's definitely a male private part. There's no doubt about that. If you see the little character up there, that's a Space Invader just above the street sign. Space Invader, that's a street artist from France, from Montpellier. He does those little Space Invader characters. You can scan them. He's got an app. You can scan them all, and you get. He's got some all across the globe, really. So it's quite fun. Anyway, let me show you a bit of an icon of Soho, the windmill. I'll just go behind the cab down there to have a nice view. Bear with me. There we go. So that was the site of the windmill. We are on Great Windmill Street. Would you believe there used to actually be a windmill here? It's hard to imagine today, but Soho was pure countryside, And the windmill here, that was a dance a club that was ruled in just before the. I'm just gonna cross. That was ruled by a lady called Laura Henderson. You might have seen the show Mrs. Henderson Presents with Judi Dench. It's actually it's a true story. What happened is, at the time you didn't have striptease quite yet. It was rude. You couldn't have naked ladies dancing. Rude, and we talked about it very quickly earlier when we talked about the scandal. What they did is they did those what they called tableaux vivants. So that's in French. They would say or post plastic, pretty much the same thing, because they went to see the Lords at Parliament, and they were like, if I go to the National Gallery, I'll see a lot of naked ladies, right? Is it rude to see a painting of a naked lady? No, said the Lord, and They were like, okay, why is it not rude then? They're like, because they're not moving. So that's how they started to do those pose plastics or those tableaux vivants. They basically had naked ladies. The curtains would open, you'd see one pose, then the curtain would close, and then the ladies would take a different pose. So technically they were not moving. And what Mrs. Anderson did, she would have some ladies dancing dressed up, and some naked ladies that would take a pose and not move. And she very famously not close through the Second World War, because she said she did not want those young men to go and die without having seen a naked lady. Ooh, Kurt is saying, my ex was a dancer at the windmill. Was she one of the naked ones or one of the dressed up ones, Kurt? That's a nice little pub here as well. There was a murder in this pub as well, a robbery that went wrong. And that's where they played the musical Oliver. They have a nice little street art representation here of Oliver Twist with St. Paul's Cathedral in the background. Right. Now, talking about striptease. Oh, it stinks a bit here. I don't know what they've done. It stinks. See the neon up there? The neon itself, would you believe, it's actually listed for its historical heritage. Paul Raymond was a baron of striptease. Don't know if you can see well, but the neon, it's a lady dancing. You can see the legs moving. Because so until the Second World War, you had those pose plastics and stuff, but you didn't have proper striptease with naked ladies dancing naked. And Raymond, what he did is, instead of applying for an entertainment license, like a theater license, he opened a private club. Because it was private, he could do whatever he wanted. And then he was doing striptease. Of course, the membership was very affordable, so everyone could come and see the striptease. And then he opened another. So the review bar is no longer here, but the neon is still here. So he became a baron of striptease, really. Now, Soho is known for sex, drugs, and rock and roll. This is an adult store, a sex shop. Now, this one, we're not going to go down this little court because it is known as Walker's Court. Well, it is called Walker's Court, but some people call it Wanker's Court. I'm sure you can guess why. I'm not going to go down, you know why? Because last time I did a tour here in Soho, the video got demonetized on YouTube. It might be my fault. It might be because I talked about some adult content. I'm going to try to be careful with my vocabulary. Or it could be because when I went into Wanker's Court, I filmed an establishment with a neon. They had a neon with saying all the practice they did inside. I'm not going to say the terms, but they were very graphic neon lights. So I think that might be what happened. If you are curious, you can go and watch it again. That's when I did the free car park on the Monopoly tour, because I did show you the car park down there. Anyway, we are now at the corner of Old Compton Street. So Soho, of course, was very much full of sex workers and brothels and strip clubs and all that, but it's also the gay area. Village just in front of us, that's a gay venue. What happened with the LGBT community, it's that because this area was known for prostitution and striptease, and the police officers were already closing their eyes on the striptease and the prostitution, homosexuality, male homosexuality, because no one cares about the girls, that was illegal quite late in the UK, until 1969. So the gay community used to gather here because they knew that the police officers were already quite, closing their eyes on many things. So that's why it became the gay center of London, really. This is meant to be one of the best fish and chips in London, Poppy's. Poppy's, the guy that opened it, he was actually known as Pops. His name was Pat, but he was known as Pops. He started he started working in a fish and chips place at the age of 11. At the time, his job was to cut the newspaper. You know, we used to serve the fish and chips in the newspaper. It's illegal today because of the inks, you know, they can be a bit dangerous. And also because the newspapers were read before, so in terms of health and safety, it wasn't ideal. But yeah, and then he opened his own fish and chips. He has 4. You've got this one here, one in Notting Hill as well, one in Camden Town, and one in Spitalfield. That's another cool gay bar here, the Comptons. And let me show you a quite old gay pub here that sadly was targeted by an attacker. I cannot say the T word on YouTube, but when I say an attacker, I mean an act of terror. It is the blue one across the street here. That's the Admiral Duncan. It's a small pub, a lovely venue. They have some karaoke nights. They have some drag queens night, and it's a small venue, but very nice. Sadly, I don't know if I can say the term. You know, some terms on YouTube they trigger. It was targeted by an attacker in 1999, a neo-Nazi. I've just said it. I don't know if it's. He had done an attack in Brixton against the black community. He had done an attack in the East End against the Bangladeshi community. So he was just a hater of everyone. And sadly, he wasn't caught before to come here. He came here with a bag, with a bomb and nails. He ordered a drink. It's quite a small pub. He ordered a drink and he dropped his bag and he was like, "Oh, hold on, I'm gonna go and get some cash. Can you keep an eye on my drink?" And well, sadly, the bomb exploded. They were, I think it's 74 injured and 3 dead. So horrible. The guy was caught after that, but sadly a bit too late. Yeah. And the very sad thing is that the pub manager, David Morley, I think his name was, he had been adopted. He was from Yorkshire. His parents didn't know he was gay. So obviously when they saw about the attack on TV in a gay pub, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to find out this way." And he was a very popular guy in Soho. He was actually a drag queen himself. And after that, he had kind of changed his life because he was drinking a bit too much. So he had quit over here. He had taken another job in another gay pub in Earl's Court. And he went for a night out at Heaven. It's a gay nightclub in Charing Cross. And he was with his mate, Alistair, having sat on a bench after the night out, when he was approached by some horrible teenagers, a teenage girl called Chelsea, filming him. And she was like, "Hey, we're doing a documentary on happy slapping," and they kicked him to death. So the poor manager survived a homophobic attack here, and he actually did a great job in rescuing people and helping them after the attack and stuff. When 5 years later he was murdered in another attack. Tish, no, Heaven have just reopened. I tried to go a month ago, but we didn't get in because my friend didn't have his ID. They had closed because of they had a bouncer, a security. Oh, bear with me, I'm gonna get rid of the umbrella because I think the rain has stopped. They had a security that was accused of sexual assault on a straight girl. Well, a straight security, I don't know whether the girl was straight. But so that was a bit of a scandal and they closed down, but now they've reopened. The guy was, sorry, I'm struggling with the umbrella. The guy was cleared actually. He was apparently not guilty. And Heaven has reopened. So the owner of Heaven he had 3 venues here. Heaven, GAY and GAY Late. GAY and GAY Late have closed for good. I can show you the spot actually. Bear with me. I'm just gonna pop you down here for a sec. What I'll do is I'm just gonna pop the umbrella back in my side pocket. So I've got well, free hands really. Bear with me, I won't be long. And I bet as soon as I do this, the rain is gonna start again. But I won't be long, bear with me. Right, there we go. Now, to my, is it number 76? Yeah, this one here, that's Soho House. That's a private club, you know, where that's actually where Harry and Meghan had their first date. Soho House, it's one of those clubs. I have a friend that's a member of Soho House. Not this one, he's on the one on the Strand. The one on the Strand is not that expensive. He's paying, I think he's paying 100 a month. But they're not allowed to. The thing is, I don't really understand those clubs, because I was asking him if he goes into his Soho House and if he runs into Harry and Meghan, he's not allowed to approach them anyway. What's the point of having a club if you're not allowed to talk to people? Anyway, across the street, there's another celebrity that lived here. Let me show you his picture. You tell me if you recognize him. He's got a little blue plaque, but you might not be able to read from here. Who do you think that might be? He lived here on Dean Street in the 19th century. And he had some chicken. He lived on the top floor, but he had some chicken in his apartment. At the time, you had, you know, Victorian times where that was the time of urbanization, you know, as we know it today. Yet they still had some animals like cattle or chicken in the city center. So who do you think that might be? Let me know exactly. Bruno Mars. No, it is Karl Marx. I just came across this picture of him young the other day. I never knew, because we used to see his image like he's on his grave, you know, in Highgate Cemetery. Big beard and a bit older, but he was actually quite nice looking when he was younger. Looks like Harry Styles, says Jenny. Anyway, let's go through the back streets to show you another place where another interesting character used to live. John Logie Baird, the inventor of the television. He lived here in Soho as well. Well, he was Scottish originally, but he had lived in Hastings down south. Oh, thanks, Linda. That's very, very much appreciated. He had lived in Hastings, but he was kicked out of his flat share because he had created an explosion, and then he moved down here in Soho. After that, he ended up, I think, in Sydenham and Crystal Palace in South London, but he lived here in Soho for a while. And I'll show you the very spot where he did the first television broadcast. It really didn't look like the TV we've got today. I mean, you know, you've got 4K and stuff today. At the time, he had, I think, 30 lines. He had originally he had a lady posing for him, you know, like being videoed, but he had burned her hair with all his instruments and stuff, so he had to create a little dummy. So instead of filming an actual living person, he was filming a dummy. The dummy was called Stooky Bill. So the very first television broadcast, it's not an actual person you see, it's Stooky Bill, a little homemade head. By the way, if you've seen the you know, the Amy Winehouse movie that came out a couple of years ago now, you've seen the Ronnie Jazz Club. Amy Winehouse used to perform there, actually. Well, let me go back to this side to show you the spot. So this is the site of Bar Italia. Bar Italia itself, it is a bit of an institution, really. The thing is, it used to be open 24/7. Now it's until 4 a.m. I think. But you know, you have quite a few music venues and theatre over here in Soho. So that's a place where a lot of people would come. A lot of artists actually would come for a coffee or a tiramisu or a bit of food or a drink in the middle of the night. Anyway, excuse my finger, but see the little blue plaque here? That's for John Baird. So that's where he did his first television broadcast. I don't know if it is true, but there's a story that says that when he did that, he had all these, all those discs and stuff, and maybe even antennas outside or whatever, all this weird material or equipment that the sex workers would have never seen before. And apparently some of the sex workers were not happy. They believed it was a new system to spy on them, so they interrupted the broadcast. 7 to 5 a.m., says Kurt. Oh, I thought it was 4 a.m. But anyway, yeah, long time through the night. Now, Soho, it was, would you believe, the French district. What happened is we had a lot of the Huguenots. The Huguenots, they were the French Protestants. After the revocation of the Edict of Nantes, the Protestants were persecuted in France, and a lot of them moved on to Soho. And so much so that at the beginning of the 18th century, half of the district actually spoke French, would you believe? And it was such a great example of integration that later on you had some Greeks. Actually, the street down there is called Greek Street, and some Italians as well. Now, Tish, you were talking about heaven. This was the site across the street of GAY. They closed down a few months ago now. They were the cheapest paint in Soho. I've spent quite a few nights in there myself. It went all the way, they had 2 floors up there and a basement as well. The basement was for girls. They used to have very, very cheap alcohol. And once the night finished here, you'd go down to GY late and then go down to heaven. But yeah, the big boss said that closed because Soho was not gay enough anymore. Which is it's quite true, but there are a lot of gay clubs closing everywhere. Well, there are a lot of clubs closing anyway, because some people don't party as much. Because you don't need to go and get drunk to pool anymore, you just go on Tinder. Thank you, Diane, that's very much appreciated. Let me flip the camera around. See the little entrance there? That is She Bar. That is the last remaining lesbian bar in London. There are a lot of lesbian nights, like events like Mint or Lesbian Island and stuff, but in terms of venue that is always lesbian, it's the only one. I used to be banned for life. Not my fault, but my late friend I should say, one day she had an interesting idea. It was only us down there, it was very early, but we started drinking very early. She had a stupid idea. It was only me, her, and a Brazilian girl I met in the toilet. No one else in the place. And my friend thought it was a good idea to avoid the hangover the next day, to drop some paracetamol in her own drink. It was her own drink, but they saw that on CCTV, and they decided we were spiking girls' drinks. And I was like, this is ridiculous, it's only us down here anyway, who are we gonna spike? And they didn't believe us. I went back. We were meant to be banned for life. They took my picture and stuff, but I was back a few weeks later. My friend never did, but my friend was a bit easy to recognize, let's say. She was a bit big and butchy. But yeah, banned for life because of paracetamol. Yeah, nothing naughty, Tish. Nothing naughty. Anyway, let me cross over. This little pub here, the French House. It's not actually that French. It used to be called the York Minster, but what happened is through the Second World War, General de Gaulle, the leader of Free France, he had some meetings up there. And actually later on, as the French president, he came to visit a couple of times. Now, let me show you another gay bar. The one behind the scaffolding there, that's the Golden Lion. It's not as old as it looks. I think it was rebuilt in the 1920s. But sadly, this is the spot where Dennis Nilsson, the serial killer, if you don't know about Dennis Nilsson, is a bit like our Jeffrey Dahmer. They actually started killing the same year, I believe, 1978, I think Dahmer is as well. This was the place where he targeted some of his victims. Well, at least one. We know of one that survived. His name was Paul Nobbs. He met him in there, lunchtime. At the time, Nilsson, he had worked in the police, but he was no longer in the police. He was working at the job center on Denmark Street, just 2 minutes away from here. He'd shown up for a drink at lunchtime here to celebrate his 36th birthday, where he met Paul. He took him home, and they got very, very drunk. They had some sex, and then he actually gave a sleeping bag to Paul, and he was like, "Oh, careful with the string, don't strangle yourself." And then Paul woke up being strangled by well, he had been strangled, and then he didn't actually die. Then Bleep, the little dog, was licking his cheek. So the guy woke up very drunk in somebody's place. He believed he had just been strangled, but then Dennis actually played the good guy, and he saved him. So the young guy was so confused. He did run to the police station, but you know, in the 70s, late 70s, when you have a hysterical drunk gay man coming shouting murder on murder, they actually told him, "No, love, it's not murder, you just got into a bad sex game." So they probably could have stopped it earlier on. Eventually he was caught in 1983 because he complained. He used to live on the ground floor, an apartment in Melrose Avenue next to Wembley, where he was burying some of the remains in his garden after burning them. But then he moved into Muswell Hill in an apartment that was above others, so no garden. And he actually complained of the toilets being blocked. And there's a plumber that came, and he actually found some human fingers in the drains. So the plumber, of course, called the police. The police turned up waiting for Nilsson. And when he got home, the police knocked at the door. This is another one from Space Invader. And you can see the name of the street is written in English as well as in Chinese. That's the local council that writes it in Chinese, because we are entering Chinatown. Now, back to Nilsson. The police knocked at the door, and he opened the door with a little smile, and the police said, "We're coming about your drains." And Nilsson was like, "Since when the police cares about drains being blocked?" And the police was like, "Come on, open the door, where is the body?" Or the rest of the body. They could smell it anyway. And as they arrested him, they took him down the car, and one of the police officers said, "Hold on, are we talking about one or two bodies here?" And Nilsson said, "Well, actually, I think it's 16. We don't know exactly how many, probably 15, 12 only were identified." Nilsson sadly was targeting young gay men that might have been kicked out of their families, you know, their family homes, and they might have been semi-homeless. He was also known as the kindly killer, because he would invite them for sex, for dinner, for a place to sleep. So he would treat them well. He was a necrophiliac. He would actually hang around the bodies for a while. He would bathe them and wash them and dine with them. And the second victim was a Canadian, and there was big news in the media. So he would have been watching TV with the dead body, watching the news about his own murders. I mean, horrible guy. And you know what's very sad as well? When he was caught, so Nilsson was an interesting serial killer. He actually loved animals. You know, very often serial killers, they have some weird behavior with animals. They attack them or they're mean. Nilsson actually loved them. He was known to be rescuing pigeons and stuff. And he had a little dog called Bleep. And Bleep was taken to Battersea Dogs Home, you know, Battersea Cats and Dogs Home. And he was killed. They believed that no one would want to rehome Bleep. Well, to be fair, it's probably a bit of an issue, because if you want the dog to be rehomed, do you tell them that he was the dog of a serial killer, that he would have licked the bodies and witnessed such horror, or do you not tell them? And eventually the dog home believed that he would never be rehomed because of its history, so they actually euthanized the dog. Apparently it's not the only one. There have been some other dogs from infamous killers that have been killed because they didn't think they could be rehomed. Anyway, little stop here. This establishment has actually changed name. It used to be called Play to Win. Now it's a Game Nation. But that was also the site of a terrible murder. I think that one is in '89, so it was an arcade as well. It was already a game. We are in the middle of Chinatown, so Chinatown, it's mainly restaurants. They're not all Chinese anymore. Some of them might be East Asian or Pan East Asian, that's the term we actually say. But there were a lot of casinos as well, because after the Second World War, people from Hong Kong, they bought a lot of the area. Chinatown didn't used to be here. It used to be in the docks in Limehouse, but the docks, they were badly damaged through the Second World War. So Chinatown gradually moved here. And in the 80s, they had a grant from the government, so the city council actually gave a lot of money for the, all those gates and those arches and the lions statues and stuff. Anyway, back to the murder. So it was already an arcade down here at the time, and they had a young man working as a security. His name was Victor Castigador, which is actually ironic because castigador, apparently in Spanish, it's an executioner or a punisher. Victor was not Spanish. The name might sound a bit Spanish, but he was actually from the Philippines. In Tagalog, in the Philippines, you have a lot of names or words that sound a bit Spanish. It's because of the Spanish influence, through the time of the colonies and stuff. Anyway, Victor had befriended a couple of British expats in the Philippines, and he ended up dating the lady. She divorced the husband, and they moved here. So then he got a British passport, and he worked here at the arcades for a while. He worked there for 3 years, I think. And eventually he decided to ask for a promotion. It was refused. And he didn't take it well. He became lazy and bitter, and so much so that eventually he was sacked. And one day he turned up with 4 teenage boys that he had paid to come for a robbery. They didn't even have proper guns. They had toy guns, but in the arcade it's a bit dark and stuff, and if we come and point a gun at your face, you'd think it's a real one. So he came to attack his former colleagues, and officially the deal with the teenager is that they were gonna rob the place. That's it. And what he did is he actually opened the safe. They had a full safe, like you could go, you could put your full body in the safe. He got the money, the equivalent of about 20K today. And instead of, the plan was to lock the stuff in the safe and run off with the money. Instead of doing that, he actually got a bottle of white spirit, locked the colleagues in the safe, and lit up the white spirit. Horrible murder. 2 of them died, 2 of them survived, but imagine that's probably one of the worst ways to go, to be locked in a room with fire. Well, that's probably exactly how a lot of people felt on New Year's Eve, the terrible fire in Montana, in Switzerland. All those teenagers locked in that couldn't get out. So yeah, anyway, hello! Some people want to be on camera. Anyway, let's go down to take a quick look at Leicester Square, because there are a few new stuff on Leicester Square, and then that'll be the end of the tour. So Leicester Square, that's the place where you come for the, a lot of people come for the premieres. A lot of the movie premieres, they happen here on Leicester Square at the Odeon Theatre straight ahead. And because of those movie premieres, it is now a place where you have statues of icons of the cinema. You might already see a little bit of Mary Poppins straight ahead. Let's get a bit closer so you can see a bit better. Where is this? Jackson is asking. We are in London. We are live from Leicester Square in the West End in London. So here is Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins, it's of course a movie, but actually it was a book way before to be a movie. It actually took forever to become a movie because the author, she did not want to give the rights to Walter Disney. She was afraid he might ruin her character. So it took many years. They actually did a movie about Disney's struggle to get the right from Pamela Travers, the movie right. The book was quite similar, but in the books, Mary Poppins, she's a bit more vain. And also the books were set in the 1930s, in Pamela's times, when the movie it's the 1910. In the movies you have suffragettes. Mrs. Banks is a suffragette. She's not a suffragette in the book because the book is 20 years later. And in the book, I think they have 4 kids, two babies. In the movie, that's only 2. Anyway, here is Harry Potter as well. And let me show you the newest one. I'm not meant to go, but the barriers are down. Should we just go? Yeah, let's go. If we get told off, we get told off, but they've taken the barriers down. So the newest, well, it's actually not the newest one. We have another one I can show you as well. But this one has been here for a couple of months, only maybe 3 months now. That is Bridget Jones. I think she looks quite well, quite realistic, but I think Bridget was a little bit chubbier, wasn't she? She looks a bit skinny to me, but we can see it's her. She's got her diaries and everything. Right, should I climb up here? Yes, let's do this. Just gonna go like this to escape. Right. Yeah, the new one, it's a bit of a mystery to me. It's actually a Bollywood movie. And this straight ahead marketplace, that's a new food court. It opened exactly a month ago. It doesn't look like very big from the outside, but it's actually quite big inside. So it's a food court with, which is great because that's. As a tour guide, sometimes you have to wait and sometimes you don't want to spend any money. So in the food court, you can just go and sit down. No one would know that you've not ordered. And they have toilets and everything, so that's actually quite convenient. Anyway, let me show you the new Bollywood one, and then that'll be the end of the tour. I don't even know the movie, and I'm not big into Bollywood movies, but I know the characters. I think they met here on Leicester Square in the movie, so that's why they've decided to pop them here. Here they are. I'll show you the plaque as well, because you might know them. I don't. So this one is very new. It's been, I think, only a few 2-3 weeks max. Let me show you the name of the movie. You tell me if you know of it. So that's Scenes in the Square. That's the series of sculpture. We also have Mr. Beans in the middle. We have Paddington. We can't really go and see them now because they're in the middle of, they're removing all the Christmas market stuff that were here, but they'll put them back. Paddington, Mr. Bean, Charlie Chaplin. We also have Batman on top of the cinema. We can't really see him at night, and Laurel and Hardy as well on top of the ticket office. We can go and see Laurel and Hardy actually. Now, talking about movies, I didn't tell you earlier, when we talked about From Hell on Cleveland Street, I didn't really tell you where that theory came from. It's all rubbish. Here are Laurel and Hardy at the top of the theatre ticket. It's all rubbish, but it is based on a theory that came out in the in the 70s. Really, there was a very obscure doctor that published in the Criminology magazine that he was in the possession of the diaries of Sir William Gull, the royal surgeon, the royal physician at the time of Queen Victoria and all that, and that Prince Eddie actually suffered from syphilis. And then after publishing that on that, then he would have attacked those prostitutes because of that and blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, after that obscure doctor died. No one was able to find the documents he allegedly had. And we know Eddie did suffer from some kind of venereal disease, but I mean, gonorrhea. We know that because of some of the letters with his doctors, but we don't know whether he had syphilis. And then there was a guy called Joseph Sickert that claimed, that guy does exist, I've seen interviews of him. There are different claims. Some say that Sickert was the illegitimate son of, or grandson of Eddie, but that's not actually what he claimed. Sickert said he was the illegitimate son of Walter Sickert, the artist, and that what happened is Eddie's girlfriend, Mary, or fiancée, you know, Queen Mary, Mary of Teck, she was fiancée to Prince Eddie before he died, and then she ended up marrying George V and becoming the Queen grandmother. Apparently Mary had told Eddie to go and improve his painting skills, and that he took lessons with Walter Sickert. And that Sickert had some naked models that would come and pose for him, and he would have secretly fallen in love with one of them, and that he would have secretly married her, and she got pregnant, and that guy, Joseph Sickert, could have been the producer of that, but there's absolutely nothing to back this up. But the guy really exists, but there's nothing that backs up his story anyway. But that's how the story came up, and that's how Prince Eddie ended up in Hollywood, because it's such a crispy story. You know, everyone loves a good royal conspiracy, but sadly there's no. And Prince Eddie, whatever you might say of him, whether he was involved in the scandal or the Cleveland Street or not, maybe, but we know he was not the Ripper himself. He had an alibi for every single murder. Well, some might say that the royal diaries can be faked. Actually, the fact he had an alibi for every single one of them, it might even be more suspicious than anything else. But yeah, no, there's absolutely no reason to believe he would have been the Ripper himself. Even William Gull, that's also quite ridiculous to imagine. Is the cinema there still set to close down? Mike is asking. Oh, I didn't know it was meant to close down. Do you mean the Odeon? Maybe. I don't know anything about that. Maybe. It didn't look, because it didn't look too busy earlier. Bruce Willis, no, this is, oh, I've not seen it. It's the guy falling. It's a modern movie I've not seen. What is it called? Everyone knows it, but I've not seen it. What is it called? Oh, I forgot because I've not seen it, but I don't think it's not Bruce Willis, no. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions. We can go back and see the plaque if you want. If anyone in the chat knows, let us know. If not, we can go back and see the plaque. No, it's not Tom Cruise. I think it's a black actor. Let's go back. We'll check the plaque. I've not seen the movie, so that's why it's... let's see. It's that one is... It's not that old. It's about a year old, maybe. But everyone recognized it when I had no idea what movie it was. I've still have not seen it. But let's see if we find the plaque. There should be one. Oh, thanks, Pauline. Lawrence Fishburne. Tish is saying, let's see, is that the plug? Yes. I'll show you. Daniel Kaluuya. Yeah, but that's not the name of the movie, that's only the actor. Oh, Get Out, that's the movie, Get Out, yeah. Did you guys see it? Oh, thank you, Linda. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. I'll show you again. So that's Daniel. Sorry, it's a bit dark. Let me try to... Right, cool. Thanks everyone for coming today. If any of you were completely new to me, make sure you subscribe so you can see the lives next time. My next one is on Wednesday. We're going down to Woolpit. We'll talk about an interesting event when some green children turned up in a village. And would you believe? We believe it's a true tale. Most historians believe that it might have happened. So I'll tell you a bit more about that mystery on Wednesday. And if you want to see a bit more of me, you've got quite a lot of, I've scheduled quite a few tours already. So make sure you click the little notification bell, because it's quite easy to miss those lives. And it's actually much better to be live with us in the chat. Oh, hello, Richard. Nice to see you here. So yeah, make sure you click the little notification so you can be notified when I go live. And next week we're going away, so I'm taking you to Madrid as well as the Galapagos Islands. So that should be fun to look forward to as well. Now, thanks everyone for your tips as well. If any of you drop me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, I don't see them live in the chat, but they're as well as appreciated. It is really thanks to your generosity that I can spend more time creating new tours and galloping to the Galapagos, yes. And yeah, so thanks everyone for any little tip, that's greatly appreciated. You excited? She who must be loved, amazing. And yeah, if any of you was completely new to me, I'm glad you've made it that far into the live. Make sure you subscribe so you can join more of the fun next time. And have a great evening, a great morning, whatever time it is for you. Thank you, Kurt. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.